to do is periodically visit the comments and questions that people wrote on the episodes on YouTube. So I have a list here, and we will go through some of them. First off, thank you. I have had so many good wishes for myself and my wife, and I actually don't think of myself as being sick, even though like I am. So when I get all these wishes, I'm like, why? And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm recovering. So thank you, and that's real cool. It makes me recover quicker. Somebody asked, and I won't say who asked, just in case you worry about being acknowledged out loud. Somebody said, where should we comment? So I prefer that you comment on YouTube, and it doesn't have to, it's really nice when I read things from you, and that helps me think about you and stuff, but it's okay if you just say watched or some emoji or whatever, because Tony wrote this really cool program, which you'll hear about in a later episode, to tabulate all this stuff so I can quickly see. It's basically like taking attendance. So I prefer that. If you don't want to do that though publicly, send me an email, and that'll be how I know that you're alive and that you're following me. Somebody commented on the music. There was one person that said great, and the other said change it. So it is Good Riddance by Green Day, and it's my son playing it on a guitar, FYI. Am I going to change it? I don't know. I sort of like it. Let's see. Somebody asked if I'm bag free for good, and that's actually a good question. And there's a long answer and a short answer, and the short one is I hope so. And I've actually been in this position before, last summer, in fact, and the answer was no. I actually had a surgery, and then I was recovering, and then it got a lot worse, and then I had to go into the hospital, and bleh. But anyway, I'm trying to be very, very sluggish, and so far, things are looking good. Somebody said more soap, less toilet paper. And I have to admit, I've been thinking the same thing. For some reason, everybody is taking up all the toilet paper, and so there's none left. And I've heard that from so many people. And whoever wrote this, I agree. Most places there's toilets. There's also a shower. That's as far as I'll go. You can use your imagination. Let's see. Oh, there's a bunch of people who are using names that aren't you. And I'm going to read them here. So if you could tell me, either an email or whatever, somehow, who you are, let me know. Slice God Op, Premier League, Dawn Play A55, Alien Armada, Con Bon Bot, Blue Claps ZZ. So, yeah, let me know. And incidentally, since the episode with where I was sort of sad about how few subscribers I had, things have really picked up. So I'm still missing some people. I don't know what the percent is, but we're doing well, and I'm feeling good. Also, on another happy note, my wife, who many of you wished well, and I appreciate that, actually is getting out of her internal quarantine today. So we're really happy about that. She didn't get any worse. Her symptoms went away. We're following all the rules of the Apple app that has, you put in your symptoms, and then the app tells you what you should do. It's a bunch of if statements. I wish CV Enterprise had have invented that, but you know, we'll do something else. Anyway, she's free today within our house. It was sort of like quarantine squared. So one level of her quarantine is going away, and she and I are both really happy about that. Okay. Somebody said the comment, it was about the episodes, and they said they beat beats. And I've thought about this one for quite a while. So I got some props here. I thought about, you know, one of the beats that they wrote is spelled like this. Okay, so that's a beat. And then another one is spelled like this. I don't know if you can see that. So, and then beats is a verb, I believe, also. So it's like, do we beat? Oh, these both have S's on them. All right. So we beat the beats, or beats the beats, or beat the verb beats, or beat the verb beats. Who knows? Anyway, that one really, I got time now. I thought about that. And what's even cooler about that one, if you can't tell it, I like it when I think about stuff. One thing we're doing in our house, which I'll talk about in a later episode, is we don't get to the grocery store very often, and so we're relying on our old stuff. And so when I went and got this can of beets out, I looked at the expiration date, and it was, boom, December 2018. So, thank you. This one is, after being a prop in my video, is going to go into the trash. So thanks for listening to my first Fireside chat. We will revisit this in the future when I get more comments and questions. Hi everybody, we're about ready to do another Unity lesson, and before I do that, I just wanted to show you, we started with AP and we're going to move into Buffet, but we're going to use Discord as a means of communicating, and so that's what I'm doing here. These are a bunch of students, and there's actually a bunch of Buffet people that are here already, but stay tuned for that. So if you already use this, likely for gaming, we're going to use it as a means for you guys to communicate with each other in case you get stuck. I'm on it a lot, so you can get access to me. Stay tuned. So we're going to talk about components today, and there's a lot of vocabulary in this, but I'm realizing that the beauty of the videos is that you can stop it. And so I encourage you to do that if I start just saying too many words that you don't know, and just play it back again. So what I'd like you to do first, while I was just yapping, I was doing it, is open up your first folder on your desktop and go into the assets folder, which is what I just did. And then look for the icon. We should have saved an icon last time. I believe we did. That looks like this, which is an asset. It's called a scene. So it's one of this, eventually when we make a game, it's going to be made up of lots of scenes. So we'll have one of these for each scene, like the menu scene, and then the actual game, and maybe there's a game over scene, and yeah, that's where we're headed. So double click on that, and this is another way to get into Unity. If you didn't have a scene saved, you can just double click on the Unity icon and open up first from the beginning. So I want to do a little bit of review. First off, if your IDE, your screen doesn't look like this, remember you always can go over to the Layout tab and go down and click Default. And when you do that, that'll put everything back into the form that my videos talk to. So over here, we see this is the name of my scene. And you can see this little triangle thing over here. And if you click that triangle, you see a listing of all the characters who are in the scene, or all the game objects, let's say. And one of them is a camera. Okay, so I want you to think of this whole thing that we're going to make as a movie. And there's a camera which is taking the image of that movie. And then these are the 4 game objects that are in my movie so far, and they're derived from my assets. So when you have assets, they're just simple JPEGs or whatever. But as soon as you drag it into here, then Unity sprinkles its magic on it, and it becomes a game object. So I want to demonstrate the idea that I just described. So again, JPEG here, game object when I drag it into here, but then Unity does magic to it. So like if we pick on Fred, we select Fred, we know over here, because Unity has done stuff to Fred, that it knows where its position is, it knows what it looks like. And if I were to save Fred now, like by going over here and dragging Fred into the asset folder, you'll notice that this Fred and this Fred look different. And the reason why, this is called an asset, which is just a JPEG, and this is called a prefab. In other words, Unity has done magic to it. So now Fred is like Super Fred because we know so much about it. So later on, you'll make characters for your games, and you'll draw pictures, and you'll give them powers, and those will be game objects that you'll want to save. But they'll be derived from JPEGs, which is what will be the initial image. Over on this side, this is called the inspector again. Your last lab involved putting the objects at the faces of the clock, and that was just to give you some practice what's going on over here. So what we're going to talk about today is adding components to our game object. And I'm laughing because the vocabulary is like, it's hard to get used to. Okay, so try to be patient. And I'm going to simplify things. So over here, I'm going to get rid of some of my game objects. So Fred1, and all I'm doing is I'm clicking inside the hierarchy. This is called the hierarchy over here that lists all your game objects. And I'm going to get rid of Fred1. And I'm going to get rid of, I click the next one, and I'm going to get rid of Buffoon. And I'm going to get rid of Buffoon1. So now all I have is Fred. And Fred's a little lonely, but we'll get over it. So if I select Fred, you'll see I see it in 3 different things. It's like gray here. It's got the little blue things here. And the inspector is telling me all about Fred. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Fred some gravity so that Fred will fall. So 2 things are going to happen now. One is I'm going to show you how to add a component to a game object. And the second is we're going to play a movie. So because something's going to move. Right now, if we were to play the movie with Fred, no offense to Fred, but if we hit the play button, and this is how you play your movie, all it does is, it's doing all this processing and stuff. And then when you press the play button, you see like Fred with a nice, pretty background, but yawn, yawn. Okay, the other thing that happens is it says game here. So this is showing you like your product. But then if you press this again, then it's back in scene mode where you get to edit your game. So this is like making the movie, and then you press the play button and it plays the movie. So I'm going to select Fred, and I'm going to go down here and add component. And what I'm going to do, there's lots of things I can add to Fred. I'm going to add a physics component. So when we start Unity up, and it takes a long time to get going, the reason is there's a whole bunch of elements that are provided for you, and one of them is physics. So we're going to do something to Fred, so it's going to move. Fred's going to fall. And if you think back to the other languages, when things moved on our screen, you had to write code to make them move. And in here, you'll be able to make them move with code, but you also could make them move by giving them like powers. And so physics is one of their powers, and I just made that up. Sounds like Harry Potter. But we're going to go here, and we're going to click on Rigid Body 2D. Now, when we click that, this component shows up, and these are all parameters about the gravity component that we just selected. And if you look down, one of them says gravity scale. So that means this is what Fred is going to act like when we let him fall. He's going to fall as though he was like on Earth, 9.8 meters per second squared pull. So I'm going to hit play, and now it's processing, and there goes Fred. Okay, and then so you could say, well, that was a little bit fast. And one of the things that you can do is go and say, hey, I want that to be like Fred's on the moon. And I think that's like 20% of Earth. I don't know, Google it. But I can go in here and just put 0.2. And then when I hit play, now Fred has a little bit different behavior because the pull is less. Okay, so that's how to add an asset to a game object. So in this lab, the next lab where you practice with that, what I'd like you to do, actually before I go there, let's go and practice this too. Let's go back to this file and click Save Scene As, and let's save it as another one. Let's call it Grav for the first time that we added gravity to it, and then pick Save. And you don't have to navigate anywhere. Unity does that for you. Make sure, I'm going to say that over and over, but only place things with Unity. Don't go in and try to like rename files or move like an asset folder around. Unity gets mad very easily. So I am going to go visit, and you can see there's my new icon from what I just saved. This is my first folder. And I am going to go visit the Unity curriculum so I can tell you what your next lab is. And it's number 3. And this PowerPoint does in very slow motion what I just talked about. So you can read that over if you want a different spin on things. But if I go to the end of the lab, what I want you to do is take your scene from the first lab that you did, and I'd like you to make those game objects fall at different speeds. And if you really want to have fun with that, see if you can figure out how to make them go up instead of down. Woohoo. Okay, so right after this, now, in case you didn't figure it out on the first lab, I'm going to show you how to submit your labs to Edmodo. I realize not everyone knew how to do that. And what I'd like you to do is, for this one, is send me another JPEG, but send it after your objects have started to move, so I can see that they aren't just in the perfect circular space, but rather they're falling like rain. Or if you figure out how to make them go up, do that too. Okay, I'm going to add one little thing to the end of this for Buffet. I'm going to show you how to submit your homework, because I realize you might not have done that yet. And it's not homework, it's the lab. And normally I walk around the room, and that would mean I would go to your houses, and I'm not going to do that. So, because I can't. The governor told me it's illegal. So you're going to log in to your Edmodo account. And I made a pretend student account using my daughter's name. So click on buffet. When you get in there, you should have added that. That's the class that you're in. And you'll see the posts, and you'll see that the thing that I just talked about, the inspector lab, that's number 2, the inspector lab. And I say submit your pick. So this is the thing that you're going to respond to. And so somehow we need to submit that. And I've actually never done this before because I'm not a student. But let's find our way. So I'm going to click this thing that says open. And when I do that, there's this thing that says attach. So I bet that I can click the attach button. It says file from computer, and I named it clock, I think. Yep, there it is. So I'm going to click clock, and I'm going to say open, and that's going to attach my groovy clock picture to the submission, and then it says turn in assignment. Boom. And yes, am I ready? Boom. So my daughter Rita did the assignment, even though she has no idea what this is about. She's a vet. Okay, so that's how you do that. Hi AP. So I'm going to start your session off today with a practice problem, and it will eclipse the whole discussion. So I'm going to show you the problem now, and then you can hit pause and solve it. And then I'm going to talk about arrays, I believe, 2D arrays, and then at the end of this, I'll talk about the solution. So the problem is showing, and I haven't done this yet. It might be a little frustrating, but I'm going to just scroll through it. So the question is, what's the output of this program? And I'm taking advantage of the fact that you can hit pause and also go backwards. So there's a couple methods. So this is a pretty cheap way, and I'll get this figured out. The problem is when I give you things on Edmodo, the episode I'm making comes later, and then it gets confusing. So because I was toying with sending you out this through Edmodo. Anyway, so I'm scrolling through the question. This is all, and the question is, what's the output of this program? 2 methods. And don't forget your friend pause, and it compiles. And then there's the PSVM. And the question is, what's the output? Okay, AP, so we're going to talk a little bit about 2-dimensional arrays. And I'm going to stand by my claim that even though this material isn't covered on the AP test, by doing it, it's forcing you to practice all the things that are covered. And if you understand this, then the things that you are going to be tested on, you're going to hit a home run. So I really believe that. So the next thing we're going to do is talk about changing a picture. So on the screen, you see on the left-hand side, you see a peacock that's actually in my driveway. In fact, I'm sitting on the left-hand side of this picture right now. And then on the right-hand side, what happened was we went through and, like we mow a lawn, we went and visited each pixel and we removed the color blue. And so this is what comes out. Remember that a color has RGB in it. We went in and made all the B's equal to 0. So how did that happen? Well, I want to introduce you to the way the code is set up. So in we are in folder number 2 pix called alter pix. And inside there, there's a PowerPoint, and there is source code. And I'm going to look at the source code first. So I have the PSVM now, and the name of the file is picture tester. That's like saying starter. So, and remember that you can hit pause. I'm going to go a little faster in these so they're not boring, or they're probably still boring, but so it's somewhat bearable. But there's a method called test zero blue, excuse me, and that method, because it doesn't have a dot in front of it, is somewhere in this class, and you can see that it is right here. Okay, so it calls this method. We construct a picture object, and then we explore it, which is just what displays it. And then we call this method zero blue, which you can tell has to be inside the picture class. And then we display it again. So I ran this code, which is what you saw to start with. And so now I'm going to go inside the picture class, and hopefully, and I'm lined up with where the zero blue method is inside of picture.java. And there's a lot of stuff happening inside this class, like picture is actually a subclass. And the fact that you know inheritance is going to make it so much easier for you to navigate through these files. So again, inheritance isn't on the AP test, but it allows you to be fluent when you're studying this stuff. And I feel good about that. So on line 91, we grab the picture in terms of pixels, and this method does that. And then we have a nested for each loop. So again, this is a good thing to review. And so this outer for each loop, what it's saying is for each array inside of the matrix pixels. Okay, so remember, we're looking at a matrix as an array of rows. So this goes and gets each row, and then the inner loop grabs each pixel from each row. So this is a good thing to study if you don't understand that yet, but it's a really clean way to do this. And then we go in and we set each pixel to be 0, set the blue value of each pixel to be 0. So you can think of this like mowing the lawn, and it's visiting each pixel in the whole picture. And when you're done, all the blue values are set to 0. So there are labs associated with this to help you practice this a little bit. And I'm going to show them to you here, and you're going to follow the same pattern that we just did. So each one tells you to do something. You're going to basically, in the picture class, you're going to add 3 methods that follow the same pattern as this, but they'll be doing different things to the picture, and the labs tell you what to do. And then inside of the PSVM, you're going to write a test method for testing each of the things. It's analogous to this method, this test 0 blue. And then you're going to call that method, and it's already set up for you. All you have to do is uncomment it. If you look at the PSVM, it's full of all these tests, and the practice things, I believe, it's one of these 3. So you'll comment out the test 0 blue and uncomment one of those, and negate is another one, and grayscale is another one. And they're pretty straightforward. They just follow the pattern of what we did, but it gives you some practice with understanding how for each loop, nested for each loops work, and manipulating a 2-dimensional array. Okay, so the next thing that's going to happen is I am going to explain the answer to the question that I showed at the beginning of this clip. And before I do that, I should have said something, so I'm going to say it now, and that is the code was intended to remove all the zeros from an array. So initially you're given some array, and it may or may not have zeros in it, but after that code is run, the resulting array list, I should say, should have no zeros in it. Okay, so that's an important thing to know. All right, so you shouldn't go on to the next step unless you've already taken a crack at the problem I gave you at the beginning. So I'm going to talk about the answer to the question that I gave you at the beginning of this clip. So here is the answer. I typed it in and there it is. So you can see here's the original array list, and the goal of the method was to remove zeros. And so you can see it did a pretty good job, but it wasn't perfect because there's one left over. And this question is a hard question, but it gets on a point that I want to make sure you guys understand, because this is something that they would ask you, because it is on the harder side. And I think they're going to ask you a more challenging question on the test. So if there's a double value of the one that you're trying to eliminate, it isn't able to get both of them the way the code is written. And here's why. When you remove an element from an array list, like for example this one, it's in index 0. And when you remove index 0, then the one that was in index 1 becomes index 0 afterwards. And so you want to be sitting right on that same index 0 place when you do the check the following time through the loop. The next time through the loop, when you say get the next one, see if it equals 0, you still want to be, for this example, in the 0th position. But we don't do that. We increment k here. So when we increment k, this 0 moves to this position, k moves to the 1th position, and it's looking at this one, checking to see if it's 0. So it jumps over this. And like I said, that idea, the College Board loves to test you on. So if I went too fast, stop the tape if you're taking the AP test and make sure you understand this idea, because I think they're going to ask you a question about an array list on the first question. And if they do so, if you see the method remove in there, they're trying to make sure you understand this idea. A couple other comments buried in here. One is we're using the wrapper class, capital I integer, which I talked about on the last episode. And you can see from that, although we haven't talked about it explicitly, it has an equals method. So that's something you should be able to look at this and maybe you didn't know that, but go, oh, okay. And related to that, I want to share with you, and I don't think I talked about this yet, but I put into the AP projects folder the cheat sheet, the official cheat sheet that you're going to have for this year. And so you should look at that if you are taking the AP test and study this. And this basically is, you'll have it with you, which means you shouldn't memorize this stuff, but it lists all the methods and classes that the AP, the College Board, says you're responsible for. And we've gone over all this stuff in depth. So I think it's familiar to you, but it would probably be reassuring for your head to look at that and just say, yeah. And if there is something you're weak on, this should help you guide that study. The other thing I want to point out is just a little detail. Notice this if statement has no squigglies with it. So it says if nums get equals blah, 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 and then it says remove. And so when I've taught you to put squiggly brackets in, just because it's a good practice. And it makes it very clear where the boundary is for what this if statement is reacting to. But if you don't put any brackets in, only the following line of code is included. That if this is false, it jumps over it, and if this is true, it'll do it, if there are no brackets. So that's just a detail if you were wondering that when you looked at this question.
Hi everybody, my neighbor Alex Kim is going to share a few thoughts with you. He's super passionate about teaching and he's helping me out making my vlog. Take it away, Alex.
Hey guys, as Dr. Nee mentioned, my name's Alex Kim. I've actually been to his classroom a couple times in the past few years, so some of you may remember me as just that random older looking guy who's in the back of the class. But in any case, I'm currently a grad student at CSUN, working on becoming a teacher like Dr. Neat. I want to teach chemistry, so I've actually also been to your guys' chemistry classroom taught by Mrs. Patton, and even past that, I've also was a tutor at C2, as I think many of you are probably familiar with, and so also familiar with many of your teachers and kind of the coursework you guys go through. But in any case, just real quickly, I wanted to tell you guys that during this time, I think it's important to really try to see the positives and the benefits. And I know it's difficult, but I really believe that you can sort of take a positive message out of any situation, no matter how bleak it is. And so my advice to you guys, as someone who's been through high school and college not too long ago, was just to make good use of your time. Something I've been doing is cooking, and a lot of you guys who are juniors, seniors, going to be in college soon, even if you're a freshman, I think it's a great skill to have, because you're going to have to start feeding yourselves eventually, and most of you are going to suck at it, just like how I was really bad at it, but now might be a good opportunity to give it a shot. Or if you wanted to play the guitar but never got the chance, now's the perfect opportunity. So in any case, I just wanted to say real quickly too, especially for you seniors, I know this sucks, not having your second semester senior year, your activities, your friends, your parties, but there's a lot to look forward to. You guys are only 18 and college is on the horizon, and I know I'm not the only one that shares the sentiment that college was a lot more fun than high school. So it seems far away and it seems a little bleak right now, but just remain positive, and we'll all be through this before we know it.